This is episode number 3 of Building in the Trenches podcast. This is Sam.
This is David.
And we are having a great time. It was such an amazing third week us documenting this, and so many people out there have actually told us that, oh my God, what you guys are doing over here is very, very revolutionary, and we're so glad you guys are actually documenting this process. So overall, had a pretty good week, very productive, lots of different things. David, anything special that you did just on your end?
Yeah, I think last week we kind of finished off a little bit shorter because we did have to do a marathon.
Yeah.
And for that, we finished it under 4 hours. It was a phenomenal blast. And then, getting back into the week, I have some interesting story for this week. I've built out a basic MVP after discussing with the CEO from last time. I think I briefly talked about on episode 2 of John. He owns a nonprofit, owns nearly 2,700. So I said nearly 3,000 in last episode.
Yeah.
And he gave us staffing is a big one. So we built out on Versal that I could kind of walk through, and then you could maybe talk about it, what you're seeing.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So this is essentially the dashboard. Essentially I created this up on Versal. Let's see if I could show it.
Yeah. Let's show it to the camera a little bit.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a CRM tool.
Are we able to add the link to this specific localhost website down in the comments? Maybe?
I think we can, but I think I'd like to do that once it's more fleshed out.
Got it.
I first want to ship something out,
and
then get some potential, case studies.
Yeah.
So this is the number of total caregivers, upcoming shifts, open shifts, and then compliance alerts because compliance is a very big issue. This essentially is like a network for caregivers. And then it would be a B2B play of allowing the caregivers to see, okay, these are the facilities that I'm going to today.
Wow.
Yeah, as you can see, and then there's just a caregiver spotlight of, adding them to the schedule.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, how long did this take? And do you have any coding experience? And how was the experience overall?
Great question. So I have zero coding experience. I'm an econ major, zero experience, but I've figured out this was a big pain point.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about the assisted living is they're very cheap, as a lot of them are operator run, and at the end of the day, what matters is their bottom line. But the pain issue is that the caregiver retention rate is very, very low. Yeah, and that's something that I want to kind of improve upon. And I feel although it's very competitive, if I'm building something where not only the family member, not only the facilities valued, but also the family members, which is the clients value it by showing them, oh, this is the caregiver. Look at their caregiving their experience and prior experience. I feel that's gonna make a stickier experience. Yeah. So
overall, I have actually dabbled a little bit with V0 as well. And what I usually just do is I just
actually showed me something.
Yeah. So what I do is I just clone other websites and the UI and UX. Is that something how you did, or did you hard code using ChatGPT?
So I actually did it starting from scratch of specific features that I wanted. Yeah. I didn't really I used to do that of giving backgrounds of trying to replicate. Yeah. But from here, this is just the core problems that what the end user would want to see. Yeah. And kind of bake that in, and then we'll see.
That's amazing. I mean, very cool. I mean, you already have stuff figured out right here. I mean, you talked to this very, important person who was able to provide you, with everything. And I mean, best of all that did happen through cold email. Yeah, exactly. So which is great.
We're actually taking a new course now. I think Sam mentioned that at the end of every week, we're going to be attempting to buy a course and kind of learn from it so that we could share some of the insights. And we have been slacking for the past couple, 3 days or so, but we are starting the Neva Madora's copywriting course, which has been probably even better than, not throwing any shade to Kieran, but it was he's very punchy. Yeah. And
no, Neville is just a great guy. And the crazy part is that it's a very old course. Yeah. That,
2012? Was it 2012?
Yeah, 2014. Yeah. Which is insane. A decade-old course. Yeah. And the crazy part is that those copywriting principles still work to this day. And it's probably one of the more, one of the better courses I've actually taken. And anything specific you want to, tell the audience in terms of what they can learn from what we have learned currently?
Yeah. I think we kind of dabbled upon the AIDA principle already, the attention, interest, desire, action, and he keeps on emphasizing in every single episode that nobody gives a damn about you, and that's really kind of baked into the course. And although it's such a simple reminder, to have him reiterate that within all of his copies, and then also the template. Yeah, the template I think is a game changer because it's it's a proven concept, it works. But I think you have to adapt it in this manner because I've seen Max Strudever, from Wellcome. He was a a student from Client Ascension who's, you know, built out, I think, nearly a 7-figure agency within 2 years or so while in college. Absolute dog. But one of the things that he states is that long copies does work, but you kind of have to make it in an infographic, for example, because people have lower attention spans. So I think we talked about it while watching some of the courses. It's like, the principles remain the same. You just have to adapt it to what works in the current market.
It's so funny because after taking the course, I literally went on a walk and I was, you know, I just couldn't get the AIDA principle out of my head. I was just like, oh my God, like, let me look at, you know, this specific billboard that we have right now. How are they using AIDA principle? And once you truly understand what AIDA actually is, so what is AIDA? AIDA is just attention, I is interest, desire,
action.
All right, beautiful. So basically, like, I mean, you look up to a billboard, it's like every single reel, every single reel is AIDA principle. Every single billboard, every single ad, everything that you kind of see is built. Everything good, at least, is kind of built on AIDA principle, just because that's kind of what you want. You want to hook some people in.
Let's do like an example. Have you seen the Call Me Jacob ad? It's like a personal injury. You see so many billboards of advertising for lawyers specifically, because they work, I think, mainly on contingency plans. I don't know if we talked about Morgan & Morgan before, but they do over $1 billion.
Jeez.
And the fact that they have an irresistible offer, which is you only pay us if we win. That's a crazy offer.
I know.
You know. So one of the hooks that they kind of utilize, I mean, one I'm thinking about is not Morgan & Morgan specifically, but Call Me Jacob. That it's like attention is like that classic Lakers, like there's like, you know, people already know. And then the interest is, you know, it's like that face. You know? And then the desire would be Call Me Jacob and / action as well, because it's literally baked into the message of Call Me Jacob, the real deal. You know, so I think that's a classic one.
That I've actually seen another one of those lawyer ads. It's called a Lemon Daddy.
Lemon Daddy. That one's a good one.
I mean, they're very good because it's just like, okay, what even is a Lemon Daddy? And it's just, it's pretty insane. They probably just, you know, got the name from GoDaddy. And they were like, hey, you know, that works. It's just, you know, catches their attention. Like, hey, what is a Lemon Daddy? And they always have, you know, someone like, you know, fairly attractive on these billboards. And it brings a lot of people. They're like, okay, what is this? They go onto the website and they're like, all right, cool. We're like a personal injury person. Another example I actually saw was this affiliate person using YouTube ads to get leads for injury lawyers. But his funnel was fantastic. So I get this ad and he's like, hey, if you've been injured, you can make, you know, this much money. And all you have to do is use this specific calculator that I built out. And you can just estimate.
Wow, that's a great funnel.
So it's literally for $0. These guys go down the funnel. They're like, oh, I've been injured. Let me just make sure how much I can earn. They go in there, and the percentage of those are gonna be like, oh, like, I mean, I need to kind of figure out how I do it because I don't want to go find a personal injury lawyer and then, like right there is call to action. Be like, hey, you want me to connect you to one?
Wow.
I know. So that's an interesting
that lead form probably just prints money.
For 100%. Like that guy's printing, like, and it's just, you know, a guy our age, you know, just like, you know, hacking his way in, just in the trenches, baby.
Maybe some black hat methods here and there, but eventually it works out, and that's what matters. Is like the amount of, you know, continuous tests that you have to do, because you never know which, especially in paid media, you don't know which ad is gonna perform. So this guy has been, you know, affiliating for a while.
I know. And over the last, like, you know, year or so, a lot of people have complained. They're like, Meta ads don't work. You know, ads in general are not working. But
especially in the CPG space, right?
It's been huge. It's been a very tough market for the CPG itself because, again, for slowing economy and, you know, people not having the easy money that they used to have from stimulus. All the stimulus checks actually just got drained out. And, of course, with inflation, things have been a little bit bad. And consumer, for sure, is hurting. So, but the thing here is that if you do have a good product and a good offer and, you know, your ads are not really working, it's not the problem with the ads. It's literally about you're not testing hard enough. You need to go on to Facebook and you need to give it 50 different creatives. That's why I truly believe that for any CPG brand or any brand in general,
it's the output.
It's the output, and that's why I think that the most important role in the next 5 to 10 years for any CPG brand is gonna be
creatives,
a content creator in-house, or even just employees. So, I mean, companies like there's this chocolate company. I forgot the name of it.
Yeah.
Like it's like a triangle
Tabs?
chocolate.
Are you talking about Tabs?
Not Tabs. Midday Squares.
Midday Squares, okay.
Midday Squares. So it's basically a chocolate company, and they were like, okay, we need all this content, and we want to create organic content specifically. We can either have in-house people building, just creating content, or we can just outsource it over to, like a lot of the creators out there, creators that we're gonna have to pay. But these employees that we have in-house at our warehouse, we're already paying for them, and they have done such a beautiful job in, just building in public. And basically just showing the back end of building, the next big chocolate brand company. And every single time they iterate, so they used to have larger bars, and they asked the audience, they were like, hey, what would you like us to do next? And a lot of, people who were using them and eating them, they were like, hey, I want you to create smaller packaging. So they just tested that out, and it did really well, because I think it was a little bit of a higher end chocolate. So yeah, that's basically what they're doing now, and they've done pretty well, just building in public. And I know we always say, hey, building in public is very important. One quick thing, actually, I have kind of started building in public, and I am documenting stuff on YouTube, literally just very raw stuff.
Nice. For Printify, right?
So basically, like the hook over there is like, hey, I'm just building the next $1 billion brand, and again, Printful itself, which is I'm building a competitor to that. They're worth $1 billion, and they even absorbed Printify, which is another competitor. I think they were valued about $300 million, but they still got some more equity, so it is going to be more. So they both, like, now it's just a monopoly over there. The crazy part is that someone can easily go in there and disrupt like certain things, or just at least get a piece of the pie, and that's kind of what I'm documenting on a daily basis.
Of building Printful from ground zero.
And overall, I mean, I wouldn't exactly say like it's building straight from zero, but I think B2B side, technically it's building from zero. Currently we're focused on the D2C side, but yeah, that's something that's been going on.
Nice.
Overall, I think this week what I was able to do is I was able to do two-angle testing, where using cold email, where I did procurement people. So procurement people are actually people who work at these companies and
in charge of purchasing, right?
Yeah. So basically, tried closing a few of those people.
How is like the sales process? Because I remember, working in sales, for example, the hardest people to sell to, I heard, was like sometimes CISOs. It's like security officers.
Yeah.
So procurement is like, I'm assuming like similar to CIOs, the chief investment like officers or whatnot.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be very much of a headache to even get a hold of them.
Yeah. So actually, it was a test for a reason, and it failed miserably.
Oh really?
So even though it is good, what I didn't realize that some of these sales cycles are cyclical. They're not always looking for the specific product that we're working with. So that's why I was like, okay, in terms of vendors, like I just want something a little bit more predictable.
Right.
So that angle might not be it. So another thing I was doing is I actually reached out to a lot of the apparel people working in apparel within the greater Los Angeles area.
Right.
And I did get a few responses, but then I realized that a lot of them are just losers. So they just apparel is very, very hard. It's a commoditized like industry. Every 13-year-old, their first business, hey, I want to launch a clothing brand.
So the barrier to entry has never been lower too.
Yeah. And I mean, with companies like Printify, like, hey, you can just launch like the next big thing.
Right.
So I think that the main thing there just ends up becoming is, are you able to create good creatives,
right,
or just niche down heavily into an up and coming niche.
Right.
So yeah, basically I did get a few responses, and I was just like, honestly, I don't think I'm gonna be able to like upsell some of these guys on anything, because they don't really have any money.
Right, they don't have the budget to do so.
Yeah. So basically and then I ended up realizing it's just like I have to double down on the Printify customer.
Yeah.
So what I did is I actually went on a Trustpilot, fed that entire Trustpilot link over to ChatGPT.
Okay.
And then I went on to Reddit and I searched Printify, fed that entire page over to ChatGPT, and then I went into Shopify reviews, fed those into ChatGPT, asked it I did their deep research method.
Nice.
And I asked it. I was like, hey, what's the main problem? Is that most of these people are
kind
actually
of like a gummy search method, right?
Yeah, gummy search, but just not just Reddit, like literally all over the internet. Wherever some of these people are, and reviews specifically.
So for the takeaway for the audience is like always figure out with a pain point. Start with a pain point. That's what Sam's exactly doing, of scraping from different lead sources from actual reviews. These are customers who's actually paying money for something that you're potentially offering.
Yeah.
And so Sam's utilizing that, feeding that into AI so that he doesn't have to, go individually review by review. It makes it so much more easier. Gummy search is just one scraping tool for Reddit specifically, but he did it for all of those, especially for Trustpilot.
Yeah.
And then, what's the takeaway there?
I think just when I did deep research, the first takeaway was like, oh my God, I literally have a full-time consultant on my team.
Yep.
Like AI is truly transforming the way that you and me are building in the trenches, which is pretty insane. But long story short, the end conclusion was that a lot of these people still have to wait a couple weeks for shipping for a customized product.
That's a moat, right?
And that's the moat. And like I own my own logistics warehouse, and I have the capability of printing and shipping everything out within 1 to 2 business days. So again, if I'm able to pitch some of these current people who have these pain points of their customers not getting reviews and not getting their items on time. I mean, in today's day and age, like if
speed is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Amazon kind of disrupted that
Yeah.
model in the first place. I think also Hormozy, I think one of the business things that he talks about for any agencies or service-based businesses, like if you can't compete on price, compete on like speed.
Yeah.
Right? Because not everyone is going to pick up the phone. Be able to deliver it. But if you could offer that with logistics, that's your competitive advantage that you could maybe even double down within your landing page of like, we guarantee 1 to 2 business days or something like that along those lines.
So I'm basically using that and the ADA principle to reach out to ex-Printify customers, and the way that I'm, grabbing their emails, which is kind of my first video on the YouTube channel of the Build in Public, is I basically just show, hey, I basically go on to builtwith.com.
Nice.
I get a list.
You did talk about that in the first episode, I believe.
Yeah, I did. And again, BuiltWith, and then you get leads from Apollo, and then verify them on millionverifier.com. And then just emailing them over. So again, it's just the crazy part about building something new, or just finding a new offer, is that like the 5 different tests that you have to do. And I'm glad that I got a little bit of clarity in terms of which specific direction I truly want to go into. Right now I'm just I think over the last year I've been fully focused on the direct to consumer, which again is not bad, but again the lifetime value I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of hard to do, and also it's just I'm not exactly sure like how much volume from Bob from down the street is actually able to do in terms of like logistics stuff. So I wanted a little bit more predictability, so that's kind of the vision. The goal is to close 1 to 2 people and just bring him over from Printify and fill up our current manufacturing capability. That's kind of the vision here.
I love it. So whenever we're going to be testing a lot of different things on a weekly basis as we document what we've done, and like that's making us extremely accountable and also kind of vulnerable as well, because some of these projects are not going to work out. But as we mentioned in the first episode, the objective is truly to document from the ground up. So you're gonna see us actually, eat poop like on certain weeks, but that's part of the journey of building and being something like a builder. Like for example, Elon Musk, like after his first project eventually succeeded, what's his next project? It's like building rockets, and he blowed up things so many countless of times. And in society, it doesn't really reward failure as much, but in private you have to fail a lot so that in public when you actually build something you're rewarded very, very handsomely. So I think one thing that we did talk about a little bit about like the college education is like it makes very cookie cutter of like, hey, you get good college education, you get a good job, and then from there on you just follow up, get 2.2 kids, get a nice mortgage, and that's like a very good life. But what I want to kind of mention is like for founders, it's a totally different story, because they have countless of failures, countless of projects that have never even made the daylight, but those kind of mold them into kind of understanding the reality that we live in. Because if you just do it based on education, where there's like a cookie cutter prompt, that's not going to be applicable in the real world, where there's so many different variables that's not really accounted for.
I think you just need to learn to love failure. That's what it is. Because again, I've been in the entrepreneurship journey, and before that, I wasn't just in the corporate environment. And again, things were not very hard. Like, yes, day to day is hard, but just my life is like, I'm good. Like, there's no unpredictability. Like, there's no, I can never go homeless. But if you're doing something yourself, there is that, hey, honestly, things could just never work out. And it's those negative emotions that you kind of have to deal with. And I think entrepreneurship is more of an emotional game rather than, like a more logical game, because it's more about, whether you do keep going. I mean, if you guys are on Twitter and Peter Levels, he had 70 projects. It's insane. It's and he failed most of them, but the ones that did work, I mean, I would probably say entrepreneurship is very similar to gambling.
If you win it, you win huge.
Yeah. And it's just, as long as you're able to rewire your brain that, hey, I'm in the trenches, as long as I can survive this game and keep hitting the ball, you will eventually win. You only lose when you stop. And as long as you're able to sustain your lifestyle.
It's a gambler mentality. You only lose when you stop. As you hit the next roulette, all in on black, all in on green. It's going to hit, surely this time.
But again, the thing is, as long as you're learning from your first failure to the second failure, every single failure, it just teaches you something. I think you only lose if you're not learning from your failures in general. And again, yes, it is fairly similar to the gambling mentality, but it's pretty insane that again, I lived a very cookie cutter life in my lifetime as well, and then over the years I've just kind of realized that it's all just a gamble.
I hear a lot of good quotes. I've thought about even just doubling down in corporate, because it's very, as you said, very stable, and that stability gives you so much comfort.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. I think what's his name, Nicholas Taleb, the biggest poison, or the biggest poison is literally a good salary. Because that's you're gonna be trapped into the golden handcuffs, and then eventually that will make you super comfortable and complacent, I feel like.
And since we're building in the trenches, I do want to tell you guys that if you guys are chasing the quality of life and you don't care too much about freedom, you just care about building up in the society and living a good life in general, and nice stable life without the roller coaster of emotions that entrepreneurship brings, I would never bash on a corporate career. I just truly believe that for some people, I think corporate career is a better route, because it's a less emotionally draining route.
And whenever I felt stressed, that's always the safety net that I think about.
Yeah, it's a safety net. It's beautiful.
But the thing is, I think I remember this quote from Bill Burr. He's a famous stand-up comedian. He says when I'm at 50 years old, I do not want to wake up next to a woman that I do not love with, dreading at 6 a.m. dreading to going to a job that I do not feel passionate about. I'd rather be happy 50 years old, at least trying something, but sleeping on a futon, chasing a dream. So it's kind of the vision that I kind of remind myself, because the biggest risk of life is that no one's gonna make it alive. So at the same time, it's true. But I mean, we all resonate with you of if you do have, we don't bash anyone for having pursuing a corporate life. I think if for anyone who loves that's a skill set in itself. Being able to do something very routine and be able to kind of scale up in itself is a skill. We're stating that in this modern world, as things are changing. For example, if I told you 20 years ago there's going to be people making a living out of playing video games, filming themselves with a camera, you're going to call me a crackhead.
I know.
But now that's what people want to do. They did surveys in high school, and what they figured out was most people wanted to become a YouTuber. That wasn't even a term 20, 40 years ago.
And the crazy part is that that's kind of where a little bit of my political side comes in, that they did the same survey in China, and they were I want to be an astronaut. And it's dude, are we just cooked? Is America just cooked? If in China these people
their TikTok algorithms were just different, I heard. I heard that they watch educational content, and we get people dancing, and those go mega viral. I mean, of course you have to be extremely hot for the algorithm to push it and whatnot, but educational content I don't think is as rewarded compared to in China.
Well, I mean, it's because it is a communist country, and those algorithms are cooked,
right.
and they are brainwashing you into becoming a certain type of person.
Right.
And again, there are ways that you are able to do that, but it's just since we are the consumer society,
right.
Why do you think they were trying to ban TikTok? They were trying to ban it just because those algorithms, they don't like. The China does not want us to have access to those algorithms, because then we will be able to transform how the kids actually live, what they consume and what they want to be, what their dreams are. Like it's a Trojan horse. And again, this is a very controversial one, but TikTok is a Trojan horse planted by China just to ruin the mentality of a lot of the people.
I feel like that's a really good take, honestly.
Yeah,
because I do believe that those who have the most power in current society is the people who control the information flow.
Yeah.
So I think we were talking a little bit before we started filming is the network effects that we were listening to from MFM, and then that he's essentially the founder of NFX is James Courier.
Yeah.
And I think his story was, he started entrepreneurship at age 6, like selling like what was it? What was it, fish?
Yeah.
It was like fish or something. And now builds I think he has like tens of billions in assets under management.
Now.
He's a VC, very successful hit rate as well. But one of the things he discussed was network effects, and the fact that where you are born into, like your family members, where you go to college, and like the community essentially develops your whole life. Like for example, the college friends that you make is gonna be the make or break of like a potential marriage.
Yeah.
And like if you look at how much time you spend by yourself, it's like the highest, and then the next is marriage. Like people, and then it's coworkers. But the fact that he like outlines it in a very scientific manner of like these things are like controllable. Was like a really interesting like perspective. And like going back to TikTok, like that in itself is a network effect, because a network gets stronger and stronger as there's more people consuming but also creating as well.
And right? I mean, again, this is like we're going like tinfoil hat right now.
I got it on.
American society is like based on consumerism, and then again, what was the biggest thing last year? TikTok Shop.
Yeah, you're right.
TikTok Shop was huge.
We talked about Creators Corner. Remember Jim Farley?
Yep.
He was like, he's essentially building TikTok Shop organic like content creators in-house.
Yeah.
And it would just be like viral videos of like, oh my gosh, you won't believe what Luigi Mangio, and then by the end of the video, they're selling tallow like creams.
Yeah.
Because they got the 8 Invincible down in like a video format.
Crazy question here.
Yeah.
Where do you think most of that stuff comes from? Where is that manufactured?
All in China.
All in China. All right. Mostly. So basically, we have TikTok's algorithm that is in the United States, that where kids are consuming, everyone's hooked on this specific consumer specific content.
Yeah.
Then out of nowhere, this this app blows up. It's number 1.
Yeah.
Then out of nowhere, they're like, hey, let's add TikTok Shop and disrupt everything.
Yeah.
Where all of the
logistics is coming from China.
It's coming from China. So
right.
We're stimulating their entire economy.
Yeah. So that's why manufacturing is such a big pain point, I think, in this political environment, is because think about where all the money is currently going. Yeah. It's coming from China at the end of the day. That's why I think recently, remember we talked about how there was Lululemon leggings being sold for $6 in China. All of those, by the way, I think are debunked because there's NDAs that these suppliers have to sign where they can't disclose them. But the fact that like the quality is essentially the same for such a cheap price, and they're being upsold for $90 in America just because of the brand name, it kind of shows that the manufacturing aspect is so huge in China, and that's probably what propped up their economy in the first place for a very big time. But another thing is like that I think after that those were uncovered, DHgate. Have you heard of DHgate?
I haven't, no.
It was number 2 on the App Store, because essentially what DHgate is like you could buy directly from the supplier in China, in America.
Oh my God.
So TikTok people were like, oh my God, Birkin bags for $10? Are you kidding me? They're the supplier? They're going on DHgate, shopping everything. It's not Temu anymore, it's directly from the supplier. So I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah. Actually, as we're talking about Temu, I recently saw that Temu, so basically right before the tariffs, Temu had, if you went onto their Facebook ad library, they had 27,000 ads running every single day.
That just shows you, like, it's the creatives is what's gonna make or break. I've heard like the most successful like e-commerce people, what they do is they're testing out 5 ad creators like almost every day. Yeah. And that's like 25 ad creators, and that's probably like the low end. You said 27,000. That's astronomical.
You want to know the crazy part?
What?
Right after the tariffs, it went down to 8.
So they're struggling. They're definitely struggling.
Yeah, so it's just, again, like the economics just does not make sense anymore because there's 100% tariffs on like cheap stuff.
But what's interesting is like before the tariffs, there was like a loophole that Temu, I think I told you about.
Yeah.
That if it's under a certain product cost, they didn't have to pay the tariffs, or there wasn't enough like cost that they had to pay.
Yeah.
So that's why Temu were printing money and like these low, like Wish, for example, was a perfect case study because they're cheap, so they're not like detected, let's say, or like they're paying tax for coming into US. So that's why these companies were even able to be propped up because of the of the judicial system of not having to pay tariffs.
So I mean, like as we're saying, there's a huge disruption going on within Temu. I mean, all the stuff that's coming from China. We know a lot of these big brands are kind of struggling just because of their China. I even saw this tweet going viral from the founder of Cuts Clothing.
Wow. Who's now in Costco. Which one of my friends, his name Joe, his brother was the operations person, and he scaled it, I think, from like 100 million into like almost $1 billion in sales. Or maybe it was like 10 million to 100 million. He 10x'd.
Yeah. And all their stuff is manufactured in China, and he was
really?
like, yeah. Wow. And it's insane. He's like, oh, they're like, this is I sent a letter to the president, and just to like at least give us a little bit of a run rate.
Right.
But the crazy part here is that whenever something like this disrupts, that means there is opportunity in the market.
Yeah.
Like all this demand needs to be absorbed somewhere, and that's kind of what the tariffs are bringing us as people in the trenches. There's a huge opportunity, and again, I've been like, just hammering on this and trying to think about this every day. There's a huge opportunity where the consumer still needs stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not stuff that's going to come from China.
Right.
It's got to come from somewhere.
Right, but it has to be quality, just as good as quality, and then also the speed. Because as we discussed, Amazon truly revolutionized the one-day shipping.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah.
That has never been heard of. But by bringing I think in the beginning of Amazon, they used to use like USPS.
Yeah.
But they started building it in-house to make it even more efficient. So yeah.
And it's actually also funny as well. I do have a friend that he went to school in USC, and he started doing print on demand directly on Amazon. So he was selling posters. You remember those posters, like, hey, this is my favorite cat.
I remember that. Kind of like an Etsy listing of like you get your own personalized cat picture on a canvas.
He said he was doing $2 to $3 million every single year just from there until 2023.
What happened in 2023?
Chinese took over the entire market. So Amazon was like, we honestly don't really care who's running like shops. It doesn't need to be people from America. So a lot of these people, what they were doing is that, hey, they went to China and they were like, hey, we'll be the middlemen, doing everything on Amazon for you.
Right.
And some of these suppliers were like, honestly, why don't we just cut the middleman and just go straight there? And Amazon was like, that's totally fine. You don't need to be American.
Right, because it's cheaper for Amazon, right? They get more margin out of it.
They get more margin. And then they were like, all right, let's just do it. And then, right then and there, he said he lost a $2 to $3 million a year business. And now he's just, focused on direct to consumer and also working on an app. But it was pretty insane for me to like even think like all the stuff that you even get from Amazon, all that is coming from China as well.
Yeah.
Like people
because at the end of the day, I feel like it's a free market, and the best cost, the best price is gonna win over the most consumers.
Yeah.
That's probably what Amazon was thinking, like the underlying principle there was.
Yeah. And the crazy part here is that like people don't understand the implications of the tariffs that are going to happen. I mean, there's going to be so much disruption in logistics. In literally every single thing that you purchase every single day. Things are about to change because those tariffs, like they're there for a reason. There's so much opportunity for builders in the trenches to build something every day, and just in America. Like, it's just, I mean, and in my opinion, a lot of these people are gonna need to manufacture in the United States. So one of the ideas that I had, hey, if someone's technical, vertical SaaS for U.S. manufacturing facilities. So like if some very niche vertical SaaS.
That essentially Flexport? Isn't that what they do?
Yeah, Flexport. I think they help with logistics from abroad. I think that's what it is.
But I thought it was a SaaS for like.
It is, but it's from abroad though. So I'm not exactly sure how like the tariffs would affect them.
Got it.
But there are so many niches where in the U.S. like U.S. manufacturing has been hurting for the last 10 years. I mean, it's a capitalistic.
And the thing about logistics is like I actually talked to like the sales development manager at Flexport. for like an opportunity, and he was telling me that his client cases are, you know, anywhere from 5 million to 20 million. They have so many different services.
Yeah.
And logistics, it changes every single, like, you know, even months or years.
Yeah.
So he was telling me that from South America, there was like an opportunity to, like, you know, ship things from here to there and to America without having to pay any taxes.
Yeah.
But with the tariffs changing like that, like there was like an expiration on that program, so now they're figuring out new loopholes, you know, to constantly catch up on the logistics industry because it's always changing.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think
Plus, it's the oldest.
Yeah.
It's the oldest like trade in the entire history of mankind, which is, you know, merchants, you know, buying and selling things all around the world. So yeah, logistics is a huge one, especially with tariffs, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is it is boring. Like, you know, if you want to go build an AI wrapper, it's probably gonna be more fun. People are gonna, like, you know, you go to a party, you're gonna be like, oh,
I feel like you're also one update away. You know, think about when Studio Ghibli, like when that was a thing, how many people were making like Studio Ghibli apps for, like, you know, for like photos or whatnot. But with one feature, you know, people don't. Your ChatGPT AI wrapper is gone.
Yeah.
You know, so you really have to capitalize if you're gonna go that route, I feel like.
I know, no, I completely understand. It's just that's why I think the next biggest opportunity is in boring stuff because no one wants to do it. Everyone wants to. All the smart people are in AI. You know, whenever all the smart people go one direction, I'm not that smart. I go the opposite.
Yeah, we gotta go in like. At one point, you were talking about what was it, like plumbing? Like there was like schemic. There's like poop. What was it? What was it called? You were telling me that like per like hydrant, it was like $900 or so.
Yeah. And it's funny. I actually also bought some machinery from from this website that was you know, basically just drop shipping it from another manufacturer. And they were basically just taking a percentage, and all they did was, you know, outrank some of these companies. And this is high-tech machinery they were talking about. And like when I even called them, they had their, you know, like salespeople. They were like, hey, you know, we can't really do much, but we're gonna have to like talk to the actual manufacturer. And I was like, honestly, this website is not even that good. It's so niched that someone can come in, easily replicate this drop shipping store for this specific ICP, which is like DTF manufacturers.
Very niche.
I know. Who are purchasing this this machinery. Right. And if you actually look on Google Trends, and I know it's not really everyone's cup of tea, but if you go into DTF printing, which is direct to film printing, it is actually a huge trend. Okay. So I currently use in my business, I use DTG, which is direct to garment printing. So and this new trend that right now is that so initially was the screen printing side, where you just, you know, volume is kind of a big thing, and then DTG comes into play, which is direct to garment, which it's basically like a regular printing that prints on a t-shirt. Now like the new wave is DTF printing, which is direct to film, so where you just print on a film and then you heat press it onto, you know, an external thing. And now more things have opened up. It's not just t-shirts, hoodies, pants. You can do
it for any of them.
Yeah, you can do it on pens. You can do it on cups. You can do it on anything. You can do it on jackets. And it's like, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, this is, you know, transforming. So if you go in to Google Trends, DTF printing specifically is trending. So there, I mean,
potential opportunity. That was a pure alpha right there.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't want to do it, you know, but I've got too much going on. But builders in the trenches, you know, there's a potential opportunity over there as well.
And going back to manufacturing, I think I just briefly spoke about, I think maybe it was like a month or 2 months ago, I started Mendo Scar Care. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It was essentially, I was seeing like a huge Google trend of silicone scar patches, and it was because of TikTok. TikTok literally blew that up as everyone was making like just organic UGCs, which I've repurposed. I tested Facebook ads for like around $500. Got a one sale from that, which is, you know, good, you know, product market fit, but it wasn't really profitable for me, so I just had to close that project. But one of the things that there was potential for, you know, I guess we're dropping more gems, is that there was a research paper that showed that if you use silicone scar tape and also use like, for example, aloe vera, like some type of herb extract, it actually speeds up the process of healing, and then it actually looks better. There's like before and after. And I thought that was, wow, that's like, the product is revolutionary if I could create this like all in one. But I asked for like quotes of R&D. Do you remember? They were quoting me at $500,000, and I was like, no way, I'm not gonna be able to do that. But also, going back to the manufacturing aspect, is that there was Chinese brands on Amazon that were like selling the silicone scar tape that I was essentially drop shipping for like $29.99 for like $3.49 on Amazon. And I was like, okay, there's like no margin for me. Like I can't, they're too competitive.
Yeah.
So that's another like thing. It's like when you go into a market, you have to be able to spot like opportunities. For example, like the herb extract. If you have like that as your end goal, then you could kind of continue and maybe persevere. But if you don't have like a moat of, you know, you're really great at marketing or like creating creatives, then it's like a very, you know, tough hill to kind of climb on.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar thing for me as well. I mean, running print fits, that my competitors have kind of been around. Custom Ink has been around since 2001.
Oh yeah.
And again,
it's a legacy brand.
It's a legacy brand, and like again, they have a pretty, you know, large email list. That, you know, they've, like every single time someone's thinking like, hey, I need a custom T-shirt for apparel. Hey, I'm gonna go, you know, to customink.com. Like that's kind of if you even go on like SEMrush, they have a huge search volume. Just Custom Ink, just because they've just been around. It's been it was the first thing. And again, other competitors did end up coming. I think the second biggest one is actually Rush Order Tees, which went down. They I think they started in 2014 or something, but they went down the niche of like, hey, some of these like Custom Ink like does take a little bit of time. We're just gonna like
Rush
offer
Order Tees. That's a great call, like call to action, like, you know, the domain.
I know, and they got huge just because of that. They're like, oh, I need T-shirts and I need them like 2. Yeah, and I need Rush, and they just use. They're like, all right, now they're huge. So as I was working, you know, just on the direct to consumer, I was like, you know, I have been able to do like, you know, a fine product market fit within there. But as you do scale, you do end up realizing that, oh my God, like some of these giants, like sometimes you do need to focus on like a bigger opportunity, just in terms of manufacturing, and like you do need that recurring stuff.
For sure,
is like important.
Recurring revenue aspect is like the biggest like unlock that I've had is like, okay, yeah, you could get one high ticket project. I think one of like the things that I've built in the past was doing like running a marketing agency, and I was able to get like 5K in just revenue, but it wasn't recurring because these are like one-time website development. But you told me that about the idea of that, okay, you could just pay for hosting. So you could essentially, the bigger opportunity is like, hey, you could just build out the website all essentially for free, but you get that recurring revenue of $29 for hosting, which in the scheme of things, it may pay out like longer. If you do that month by month, it racks up.
Yeah, and again, then you can upsell them on like, like, hey, if you want that side maintained, I just want to make sure, I'll make sure your SEO is good. There's so many upselling opportunities. I think that's still a great first business for someone. It's just grunt work.
It's extremely hard. I gotta be really honest with you guys. I've tried this. I do not recommend it because my assumption model was I built out like essentially like an Excel sheet. These are how many cold calls I need to make. This is my conversion rate, and then this is like the cost. It turns out it wasn't 1 out of 100. It's usually 1 out of 1,000. Okay, and like it sucks. It's like you're eating dirt. And the thing is, like with the hard part about selling to small mid-sized businesses is they're wearing every single hat possible. You know, they're like the HR person, they're the finance person, they're going out there selling, they're everything. So it's very hard to get them on the phone. That's why you need a strong enough pain point where they're incentivized to get you on the call, and then you are able to actually fulfill that need. But to do that, you actually need a core skill set or build something where people actually want it in the first place, which is definitely the most hardest thing. So that's why we're always talking about boring businesses, because again, you're not competing with the Ivy League people. Let's be honest. Like, how many people are going to be building like the revolutionary, Stripe? Who are you? If you can, great for you to build that caliber. But what we're always recommending is like, there's plenty of pain points I'm sure that's out there. You have to get into these decision makers and ask, hey, how can I make your life better? Whether it be speed, whether it be cheaper cost. You just have to eat dirt for a very long while, and then you'll get some momentum one by one. And that's kind of like what we're documenting in our journey.
So actually, let me tell you about a story. This kind of reminds me of a story. You're just talking about like, this specific idea. I actually kind of like thought about something similar like this as well. So I ended up, taking this sales job for fun. And all they were doing was selling websites to flower shops.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
They raised $25 million. $25 million from Andreessen Horowitz. It was the most insane thing I have ever heard.
Yeah.
And again, they were actually doing well.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part, because it niched down. They weren't like selling to everyone. There's also another guy. He owns I think it's a kid like who dropped out of Harvard or something.
Yeah.
He raised a bunch of money for, if you go on owner.com.
I've heard of that, and they're popping off right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's been popping off.
Oh, really?
So he basically started in the flower shop industry as well, copying these guys.
No way.
And he was like, hey, like let me go down, niche down into restaurants.
Wow.
He just niched down and went so hard.
Can we also describe for the audience what owner.com is? Because I think I've read like reports, because essentially my job at my daytime is an account executive essentially at WebMD, so I kind of know what type of SaaS or like tech companies are doing extremely well in terms of like their product market fit scores. So owner.com, I think, essentially, to boil it down, they take examples of what McDonald's, the best franchises do, and then they build that exact processes for independent restaurants.
Yeah.
Right? Like a vertical SaaS essentially.
Yeah. So again, that they became that right now, but like when they started, I think 3-4 years ago, it was literally like they started selling websites.
Really?
That's exactly what they
gosh.
did. Just this random child.
That's
I think he
insane.
even worked at the same company that raised for like a couple months.
Wow.
And he saw it and he's like, I'm gonna go build my own.
That's insane.
It was insane. They even used to talk about it. They're like, oh, you used to work here like 6-7 months ago. He went in, raised a bunch of money, and like redid the same thing. It's the most simple idea.
Yeah.
But he ended up, even doing better than these guys.
Yeah, for sure.
That I was like, and then they were like, oh yeah, now we need to go into the restaurant niche. And then
so wonderful.
I know you're talking about like sales calls, especially to like some of these local people.
Yeah.
And when I did that during practice, I mean, of course it's grunt work.
Yeah.
But realistically speaking, when I saw other people doing it, I realized I'm not the best salesperson.
Yeah,
some of these guys, they're just so good.
It's personality.
It's personality, yeah. And it's also, it's an ADA framework within there, but just doing it with like such sharpness. That's why like I'd rather, it's just great. Like I did practice, again, I wasn't bad, but like I learned so much just about sales and just about like human psychology.
Yeah.
It's painful, but as long as you keep going for it, it does work.
Yeah, just the hard part about like a sales job is that it's you eat what you kill. It's probably the closest of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because like if you don't kill, you're not gonna eat at the end of the day. You have to be a hunter. So that's kind of like how I'm starting my essential career. Actually, the funny thing that you said about top salespeople is like we have a killer in our like team. His name's Vince. Essentially, he closed one of our biggest clients, Amazon.
Damn.
Yeah, and they had 500 doctors. It took him, I think, around 8 months or so.
Jeez.
But it just shows you that, the true gold is in the follow-up. And, I mean, I don't exactly know, like, how hard it is to close enterprise. I've done only maybe, like, one, but it takes a very long time. The sales cycle is very different. So, I mean, if you understand your customer profile at the end of the day, like, at my day job, it's like working at WebMD. We have a big media brand, and that makes it so easier to kind of connect with, let's say, doctors and private equity groups.
Yeah.
But without that, even just like that flower that raised websites, it's a simple idea. Like, for example, like the Airbnb, that's such a simple idea of renting out like your beautiful home and giving that guest experience to like other people. It's just
a marketplace. Yeah,
exactly.
And those are hard businesses as well. Like,
I'm sure.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But again, the most simplest ideas, essentially, if you could kind of flesh it out and then test it out in the market, I feel like you do have to be a contrarian though, especially in this day of age, because like you have to think differently. The person who made Airbnb, had to probably think differently. The MVP was probably just very simple, I think, in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think he was like hosting it when there was like a political campaign.
Yeah.
And I think he raised money I think he sold like $40,000 of cereal boxes. I think that was one of the stories from Joe Givia.
Yeah.
So like Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, was like, okay, if this guy could sell $40,000 of cereal boxes, I'm sure he could make this idea work. So of course it's definitely the grit of like the founder itself, but the idea, the simplicity aspect, I think is also really important of what we're discussing. It's like, yeah, this flower company that we're selling websites raised $25 million. It's like, dude, yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. And like we're talking right before of like, there's sperm racing happening in 5 days.
Oh
like,
man, all right, tell us more about it. Tell us more about it.
So the founder is Eric Zhu. He was raising, I think, millions of dollars while in high school. So he was taking classes, and I think he got suspended at one point because he was like, dude, like stop going to the restroom. Like we could hear you inside the restroom, like taking VC calls. But essentially, he actually built up some type of like B2B SaaS. It seems like it did pretty well because it raised, I think, a couple millions, and it seems to be it's still running. But what he's doing now is like he's collecting semen samples, tapping into an already existing rivalry between UCLA and USC, which is super smart marketing stunt. And he's also getting sponsored, it seems like, or like he's all offering Polymarket to like have different biomarkers to test. Like, so it's not like, oh, who's gonna win? It's like, oh, what is like, I don't know. They're gonna be testing out different variables, which is gonna make it interesting. And the goal is to kind of promote healthy, I think like just healthy, I guess, sexual health, because it's really important for especially young men.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're doing sperm racing in itself is just a viral idea in itself.
Let me guess what he's gonna do right now. He's gonna generate all this buzz, and you know the trend of like how sperm count is decreasing drastically.
Yeah.
He's gonna tap into that, and he's about to sell so much of like, it's either gonna be supplements, or it's either gonna be some sort of like tracking software. And he's gonna kill it.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before, where they did a study where they ejaculated a dog wearing cotton versus like polyester, and it seems like cotton underwear was doing better. So there was like a rise in this. I forgot what. There was like some type of apparel brand.
Organic.
Organic cotton that was just booming because of this like research. So this could definitely be a pure organic play.
Yeah.
Because people are gonna be like, oh my god, like I didn't know cotton was this good for my underwear.
Yeah.
And like people who are wearing polyester is just gonna change. Kind of like how, I mean, we've talked about CPG products like what's it called, like that nutrition bar, RX bar was revolutionary in first targeting. It was like targeting the people who were really into, you know what that market was? It's like not calisthenics, but it's very similar. It's like,
Pilates?
No, not Pilates. It's for what is it called? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Vegan. It's like you guys know what we're talking about. So it's essentially this brand, and then they tapped into like the keto aspect and making sure that labeling is like the thing. So after that, like a lot of brands started topping on the protein trend, and I feel like this is just like the natural revolution of like educating the market, and then essentially that becoming the standard for everyone else.
I actually recently saw this article where it was saying that Americans are obsessed with protein.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. I think I spoke about Fairlife before with you, that Fairlife was one of I think it was Coca-Cola's main brands, best. I think Coca-Cola owns that brand actually. They bought it for a couple billion, and like, I mean, in terms of returns, they're well past off that, because what Fairlife does is essentially it, I think whatever processes they use, they're able to increase protein, like whey protein, which is through like their pasteurization or whatever process that they utilize, which is so cool.
I know.
And the fact that Americans are, you know, more conscious about protein, this is just like the natural inclination. Kind of like how we figured out beef tallow was like a trend.
Yeah.
Of like, I think I showed you the founder, right?
Yeah.
He owns, he built out Netflix documentary styles on YouTube discussing health and like corruptness, and he's like, oh my god, this is a huge trend, and he built out this beef honey tallow. It's like a Monroe, it's called Evil Goods, and it has like a Monroe like face on it to kind of make it controversial, because he's, you know, he's been building YouTube and knows how to go viral essentially. So obviously it got the hook, and then now it's booming. But that's just like one of the coolest like CPG products and the trends that we're currently seeing in the current world.
Yeah, and it also taps into the fact that a lot of the founders, a lot of the creators are becoming founders, because that's an easier way. And it's actually also vice versa. And all the startup founders now want to, you know, start with distribution first, just because ad costs are increasing. Like consumers changing in general.
Yeah, let's talk about one example we were talking about, which is Jack Fricks. He learned coding in his mom's basement within like 4 months or so, probably a little bit longer. But essentially, he got a request from Sahil Lavingia. Excuse me if I mispronounce his name. He's essentially the founder of Gumroad, and he was like in the just in a post of like, I'll buy for 7 figures. And then Jack Fricks is like, oh my goodness, this is my $9 software, which has recurring revenue from my mom's basement, which, you know, maybe 12 months before I didn't even know how to code, is potentially gonna have an exit opportunity for over $1 million.
But the crazy part, I think he's pretty he's not very smart for not selling it, because if it was a real offer, I would have sold it in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
because you can easily replicate something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think for him, it's just that he wanted like a substantial amount. Like if he did exit, he doesn't really have like a need. I think he was saying that his mom's mortgage is not going to be fully paid off even with that exit. But just having an exit under your belt, I feel like will give you so much confidence.
It gives you momentum, dude. I think he's just being young.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing I wanted to kind of wrap up, maybe with like one of the thing I found recently to share with you guys. This is kind of like a black hat method, but essentially there's an anonymous Twitter account named Zephyr274, and one of the things man, I've been following that guy. Really? So what he's doing is he's doing fully done for you LinkedIn DMs. He outsources ID verified accounts, which are attractive women. He writes the copy, build the lead list, manage inboxes, and book sales calls. And his standard package is around 10,000 DMs per month. And he's printing money with this.
I mean, honestly, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. So, you know, if I get a LinkedIn DM from like, oh, like, you know, Sarah wants to connect with me. All right, Sarah, what's going on? Who is Sarah?
And think about it. All B2B SaaS founders, I feel like there's a big fraction of them are probably males. I feel like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's like using like the reptile brain, the monkey brain, which at the end of the day, we all have, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, I thought this was so ingenious. That's an irresistible offer. And I was like, dude, this guy's insane. A black hat, but so smart at the same time.
I know. And it's actually, like, he's actually popping off recently on Twitter as well, just because I think one of his, like, tweets went viral. Another thing, I'm in this community by Jackie Chow, and he's actually recently talking about how there's a lot of these people in India, they've created this like X engagement farm pod. In order, of course. So they found out that there's within the X algorithm, if a larger account interacts with a smaller account, the views on that smaller account are so much more. So if you just reply from a larger account, so what some of these guys in India are offering is they basically would just reply to some of your stuff, and algorithm, like, I mean, of course, it's just a glitch, right? But I don't know for however long it works. Like,
the algo will push you.
Yeah, the algo will push you, and then you gain a lot of followers. So what he's trying to do right now is that he has this local SEO like product SaaS that he's offering, and what he's doing is that he's creating. You know how like Greg Eisenberg has a bad marketing.
Yeah.
So he's basically doing bad local like SEO.
Oh my god.
And he's basically creating and bumping up that Twitter account, trying to scale that and funnel those people into his local SEO SaaS. So
essentially, guys, the takeaway is learn all the black hat methods, because the opportunity window is even shorter than tech booms or like these crazy .com booms.
Yeah.
But it prints, like especially like this one we are talking about. Like I mean, it sounds kind of like crazy, but it works. The thing is, like, at the end of the day, it works. And as long as like you're selling something illegal or like teetering edge of like morality and you can't sleep at night, like I feel like these are good tactics that you could utilize to get some momentum. Yeah. If you truly have like a good irresistible offer or like service.
Yeah, I mean, I call these great hat opportunities, and every single person like Airbnb, I think they were talking about like most of their initial listings. Yeah. Most of their initial listings were fake. Facebook, like their initial users were fake. Reddit was literally just like random bots that they just created.
Same with Discord, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
Discord. I think at first they were like going on like using another platform to like, engage with like gamers, and it wasn't really. And
it's the most insane thing. Like, so if every single founder out there who started a $1 billion company, if they're all starting using Great Hat Method, like, why are you just trying to do everything properly? And I know it's just, I'm not saying just go do something Great Hat, but if it works and gives you a little bit of momentum just to build something crazy for society, you trenchers need to go and pounce on that opportunity right now. Yep. And this is exactly what Building in the Trenches podcast is all about. And I'm sure you guys got some great alpha today. Any closing thoughts, David?
No, I think this was wonderful. Just juice, just for the trenchers. I love that. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in today. And with that stated, you want to do the closing off?
All right, guys. So go ahead and click the subscribe button and comment down below if there's anything specific.
You guys owe us, actually. Now we'll use the ADEF principle in full effect. So the attention is our hook, the thumbnail of this video, whatever it may be. The interest was all of the value that we gave us. The desire is for you to return to us, to kind of reply in the comments maybe of like what you're building, so that we could keep you guys accountable. We'll keep you guys accountable, and you can also see our journey. And the action is the tax that you guys have to pay, which is
subscribe to the video, go ahead and like this, and then share it with one of your friends who's another trencher. And go ahead and comment down below if there's anything specific you would like us to talk about next week. And we're going to continue the Neville Medora's copywriting course, and we're just taking that one a little bit slower because there's so much to absorb and so much to provide you guys. And overall, ADA principle, let's go.
Then last thing before I wanted to leave you guys off is the network effects to kind of close it off. Building in the Trenches, this wouldn't have started if I didn't meet Jay, and then Jay like obviously met, you know, Sam, for example.
Yeah.
Because this in itself is like a network effect.
I know.
Me and you.
The people that you surround yourself with, you kind of just become like a part of their community.
Exactly. Or what you consume. What you consume is like who you become. So you guys consuming this obviously is going to benefit you for hopefully, you know, some of these stories inspiring you or taking some type of action. So I just wanted to close with that remark of learn more about network effects, be mindful of it, and kind of utilize all of the stories in our day-to-day operations into inspiration and making you act.
All right, let's make it happen. Episode number 3 concluded. Love you guys. Hope you have a great day.
Bye-bye.